This story was submitted by J.M. Ryder Production. This happened to me in October of 2011. I was a freshman in high school and was 15 at the time. I was home alone because my family went to a party at my cousin's house and I didn't want to go. And they weren't coming back until 3 in the morning, knowing how my family parties. I was playing Call of Duty at around 11 p.m. when I heard knocking on my window. I ignored it at first because I was into the game. Then I heard it again, but this time it was a loud knock, almost like someone was banging on my window. I tried to look through the blinds, but everything was dark and the only light reflecting was the moonlight. I couldn't see anything, so I shrugged it off and went back to playing. About 5 minutes later, it happened again. This time it was even louder than the last one, almost breaking my window. I was starting to get mad, so I looked outside. But again, nothing. Then I noticed something move. It looked like a person trying to hide. My heart sank, and I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. As soon as I did, I heard a very loud knock on my door. I froze, not knowing what to do. Everything was quiet until I heard, "I know you're in there, little boy," in a very raspy, low voice. My heart was racing. I asked the person, "Who is it, and what the fuck do you want?" He responded in a very demanding way, "Open the door." I quietly went to the door to look through the peephole, and saw a skinny man in a hoodie. He appeared to be in his mid-40s. I then said, "You're out of your fucking mind. Leave now or I'll call the cops." This must have angered the bastard, because he then said, "You'll regret that." Then he started to shake the door handle as if he was trying to open it. Thank God it was locked. I then yelled, "I have a knife, you son of a bitch. Don't you dare try busting into my house." I thought acting like a tough guy would at least startle the man. Nope. He still tried opening the door, almost as if he was picking the lock. I pushed myself against the door, putting all of my weight to it just in case anything were to happen. At the time, I was 110 pounds, so I didn't think it would do much, but I gave it a chance. Thankfully, I had my phone in my pocket, so I called my mom and told her the situation. She said she'll be on her way with my brother-in-law. He's a very big, intimidating guy, so with one punch, he would knock this guy out cold. I know I should have dialed 911, but my cousin's house was less than 5 minutes away by car, so I knew they would get there fast. I told the guy, "I called 911 and the police are on their way," hoping my lie would scare him off. He stopped, and I heard footsteps, almost as if he was leaving my driveway. I looked through the peephole, and he was gone. I went back to my room and locked myself in. About 2 minutes later, my mom and my brother-in-law came in. They checked on me and asked what happened. I told them the situation, and then my brother-in-law told me that when they were hurrying to my house, he saw a guy matching the description I gave them leaving the street. He immediately got in the car and found the guy. He said that he punched him and told him to never come near my house again, or it'll be worse next time. I'm 19 now, and I've never heard from or seen the guy again. But sometimes I wonder, what was his intention with me? What was he going to do with me? But then again, I don't even want to know. This story was submitted by Eric. About 6 years ago, I was walking home from work after closing. It only took 15 minutes to walk from my job to my house, but before I could even reach my house, a guy pulls near my driveway and rolls his window down. He stares at me and then says, Do you know where I can find a guy to have sex with? I stare at him for a moment, thinking he is on drugs, before saying, No man, can't help you. Then he says, What about you? Are you interested in that kind of stuff? I said again, Can't help you, man. And I started walking away. He gets out of his car, and that's when I see he has a knife. He says to me, Get in the car. I replied with, I'm going to call the police if you don't leave. His reply scared the shit out of me. Go ahead. You will be dead before they get here. I just took off running. I ran past my house so he wouldn't know where I lived, and went to a friend's house and called the police. But by the time the police showed up, the guy was already gone, and thankfully, I haven't seen him since. This story was submitted by Matt. This happened a couple of days ago. I like to go walking, and I do it daily. It relaxes me and makes me forget all of the stresses of daily life. When I do walk, I usually end up stopping by my friend's house. It's become a regular, near everyday thing. We would smoke cigarettes, talk bullshit, play video games, drink occasionally, and I would usually smoke weed. Typical late teenage shit, right? Well, on this particular day on my walk, I decided to stay the night there. I never had to ask since his parents are pretty much my second family. After our usual bullshit, we decided to walk to the Circle K gas station just a mile down the road, at midnight. This never bothered us before, because we would always make the trek to get cigarettes on a pretty regular basis as well. We got to the gas station and got the cigarettes, and stepped outside to smoke, sitting to the left of the door by the garbage can/ashtray combo thing. A little beat-up car pulls up a few parking spaces to our right, in front of the store. A pretty average-looking woman got out and went inside. She was only in there a few minutes, when all of a sudden this man who I can only describe as Christian Bale's character from The Machinist, except with a hat on, exits the passenger side. This dude looked methed out big time. It's unfortunately a pretty big thing in our town. His eyes were bulging out of his head as he walked towards the store. As I'm looking at him, he opens the door to the store and says, or yells rather, "Don't make me come in that fucking store!" Presumably at the woman in the store, and backs up. I notice he has a knife in his hand, and the hilt for it strapped to his right leg. He walked back to the car and slammed the door. My friend and I were silent. The woman comes out and gets in the car. Then I hear muffled screaming coming from the car. All of a sudden, the man practically throws open the door and storms out of the car towards the direction we would have to walk in. I didn't even look at him. The woman screams, "God damn it, Larry! What did I do?" and slams on the steering wheel repeatedly before backing up the car and flooring the gas, speeding in his direction, over the parking bricks, and into the grass after him. I heard a slight crash, and my friend and I ran inside, cigarettes still in hand. We told the cashier working there everything and to call the police, but he didn't. My friend begins to have a panic attack, and I comfort him and then head outside. You might be thinking this is stupid. Why walk towards a crazy bitch and a meth-headed murderer man? I don't know. I guess I wanted to know if anyone was injured, or worse, dead. When I make my way over there, all I see is her car, stuck in the ditch. As soon as I see her, she managed to get her car out of the ditch and peeled the fuck out of there. The guy wasn't in the car with her, though. I didn't tell my friend that part. We waited inside 20 minutes before we left. I turned that corner halfway expecting a dead body, but there wasn't one, which only meant that that angry motherfucker with a knife was out there, walking on the same road we had to go down. I don't think I unclenched my fist the entire time. I don't get into many fights, but I'm not going to let someone hurt me or my friend. I played it off as best as I could with my friend as we joked about it, but we were both still looking over our shoulder now and again, and into the forest on the left side of the road that we were walking down. We looked everywhere, but we never saw him. I've never been in fight or flight mode like that. Thankfully, we haven't seen him since. This story was submitted by FAYE. Please note that this is my mom's story, and she was 11 at the time. My mom grew up in the middle of nowhere in Yorkshire. The closest house to hers was about 1.5 miles away. One day my grandparents went out and my mom went to go play out in the woods, which were about 1/4 mile away from her house. She played there for about an hour or so when she decided to head back home, as it was autumn in Yorkshire, so it was quite cold. She headed out of the woods and down the lane which led to her house, when she passed a van parked near to the woods, and a man standing out in front of it in what she assumed was some kind of electrician's uniform. She carried on walking down the lane, when all of a sudden he shouts, "Oi, love!" She turns around to see him about 10 feet from his van, walking towards her. Being shy, my mom carries on walking, not wanting to talk. She started to hear his heavy boots walking behind her, getting closer and closer. Then suddenly, his fastish pace turned into a run. Without turning back, my mom ran as fast as she could. Panicking, she bolted through the gate and into the house, where she ran around locking the doors and windows. As she finished locking the house, she heard the back gate open, then the back door handle being turned. She ran upstairs and hid, waiting for her mom and dad to come back. She told them about what happened, and my granddad grabbed his 2 dogs and went to go look for the guy. He never found him or his van. They notified the police, but they never found the guy. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Now in the first story, it might not have been the best decision to call your family right away, but like you said, them being close, at least you knew they'd be there pretty quick, and at least you had a pretty big guy on your side. Thankfully you made it out of the situation unharmed, and hopefully you don't have anything like that happen again. Now for the second story, I don't think there's too much to say. This sicko comes up and tries to get with a dude, and he tells him no, and he tries to take him by knife point. You obviously handled the situation well, otherwise you wouldn't be here sharing your story with us. I'm glad you got out of the situation okay, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us. Hopefully you don't meet any more sickos like that again. Now for the third story. It kinda sounds like you guys lived in a city I used to live in. Meth is crazy there, and the hangout spots are the convenience stores. It seems like this is exactly something you would see there as well. Fortunately, you guys weren't on the receiving end of whatever rampage these two were on. Doesn't sound like it was just the man, but it doesn't sound like it was just the woman. It sounds like they were just crazy meth heads, and fortunately, at least you two made it out of the situation okay. As for the other guy, who really knows? Now for the fourth story. First out, a big thank you to your mom for sharing this story. It's unfortunate that her father wasn't there to maybe help catch the guy quicker, but at the same time, at least she made it home safe. It was a very smart decision of her to run and not look back, because any hesitation might have resulted in a different outcome. I'd like to thank everyone submitting their stories, and once again, if you would like a chance to have your story featured, make sure you check out the description to see how to submit them. I hope everyone has a great day, and stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.